for the ride, baby. Don't you know I'm good? Yeah, I'm feeling alright. 'Cause I'm good, yeah, I'm feeling alright, baby. I'ma have the best fucking night of my life. And wherever it takes me, I'm down for the ride, baby. Don't you know I'm good? Yeah, I'm feeling alright. Don't you know I'm good? Yeah, I'm feeling alright. You know I'm down for whatever tonight. I don't need the final things in life.
Well, it would help if I was unmuted. That's a start. Hi. Hi, everybody. I missed you. I missed you. I'm excited to see you. We're going to do some live shock tuning tonight. I had some folks ask about how to tune shocks in the last stream, how to pretty much do everything in terms of suspension and whatnot. So we're going to do that tonight, and we're going to do our nice King of the Hammers map. It's got some really good desert sections, and we're going to kind of pump out some tuning. Do you guys have any preferences on which car we tune tonight? I was actually going to tune 2 or 3 maybe. I was thinking about doing the SP Dune Kicker, maybe another trophy truck. I was actually thinking about doing like a regular 4600 style, and then the UFO as well. Delzer says UFO. Yeah, I thought so. All right. Like I said, tonight's actually going to be a pretty quick night for me too. I'm going to get up super early in the morning, and I don't want to spend too much time. So I don't know about you guys. I've actually got a really stressful work week coming up, and I'm kind of just wanting to chill out. So I figured, as you guys know, we are masters of efficiency when it comes to streaming and making content. Let's make sure the quality is what it should be. Quality 1080p looks fine with me. All right, so we are going to start with the S&P Dune Kicker. And what I like to do first is I like to find a good stretch of desert here that'll really work the suspension. So let's find a good, a nice and rough section. So it's not too rough out in the soft desert out here. So we'll kind of go back towards the hammer trails. And I think this right here is a well, not as good when you have big markers on it. Let's see how rough this stuff is. Not super rough, not super rough. I want kind of a straightaway that's rough. ZBD says, come hang out on the race server and kill some hills. I might have to do that, man. I might. I don't know. Like I said, dude, guys, no lie, I've actually been pretty damn stressed out today. I've got a big project due at work soon, and yeah, pretty much have to have it wrapped up by Friday, and I don't have like a good pulse on how close to being done it is, so yeah. Okay, cool. This is also a nice section here. And I'll show you guys actually what we can do. I'm actually going to roughen this up just a little bit. Make it a little more difficult. So we'll make it like this. We'll drop in some whoops here, some whoops here. These are kind of big, so what we'll do is we'll actually come back and smooth some of this stuff out. But I want a few areas where the suspension will really get yanked on. Okay, so we push the ground down a little bit, and then I'm actually going to come through and re-smooth some of it so it feels a little more authentic. There we go. And I'm going to give it a couple more here, so I'm going to drop some more sections through here. All right, that's all pretty rough. Smooth them out just a smidge. just so they're not as dramatic. Okay, I'm cool with that. So we'll make this little running strip here our test zone. Start right about here. Save that. All right, how's everybody doing? I'm excited to get this started. All right, first things first, we're gonna kill the music. All right, it's gonna be nice and quiet. It's just gonna be us. All right, so here's what we're gonna do. We are gonna start with the SP Dune Kicker. As always, this is recorded for YouTube, so I'll turn on my YouTube voice here in just a second. Let's see, I don't know the differences between all of these, but this is a stock tune bear car. So we'll start here. I'll get myself back in the picture down here. Move our sub goal up just a little bit. I've noticed on YouTube, it actually cuts out some of me. Okay. Here's what we're gonna do. Hey everybody, welcome to the show. I appreciate you being here. What we're gonna do today is I'm actually gonna spend a little bit of time kind of informally showing you how I tune cars in Beam NG. There's a couple of caveats to this. I'm gonna show you what compression means, what rebound, how to spring your car, and how to make it all mesh together in a way that makes it work for me. Now, the reason I say that makes it work for me is because how you drive and how I drive and every single vehicle that you tune will be different based on the fact that it's two-wheel drive, four-wheel drive, has, you know, a big rear fuel cell, spare tires, whatever it may be. It kind of all plays into it, but I'm going to run through tonight my general philosophic ideas behind how to tune, and it should get you somewhere, you know, kind of in the right spot. There's two things that you'll need for this. You'll obviously, well, three. You'll need your car that you want to tune. You'll need to find a good stretch of terrain to tune it. All the tuning that we're going to do tonight will be for the desert. I will also make a video for how to tune a car for like Ultra 4 style rocks where you're trying to move quickly through the rocks. And then also like a, you know, just trail ride tune. What's going to be the most, you know, efficient for that, how you can climb the steepest hills. But that'll be another episode, so look forward to that one in the future. And then the other thing that you'll need is the replay button here on screen. So let me go ahead and let's pop open Beam. You'll see that I have our Bear SP Dune Kicker on here. I'm going to turn the game up just a little bit. Okay, sounds good to me. So we have our SP Dune Kicker that we're going to start with tonight. And the first thing that you'll have to have is you'll need to press Escape. Go up here to UI Applications, Add Applications, and up here you can just type in Replay, and you'll need to add the replay to your screen here. This is super important because we're going to utilize that tool to make sure that we can go back and kind of digest things as we drive. The pattern that I like to tune in is going to be drive, watch, tune, drive, watch, tune, so on and so forth. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to make a good pass at just our section here. I'm not going to go terribly fast. I'm not trying to break the bank. I'm just trying to drive how I would normally drive. Now this car, oops, first thing first, there's a classic mistake. Go up here to the corner and hit the record button. Now I'm going to say this too. This is a two-wheel drive car. You will not see me all over the gas all the time, and it'll kind of give you a baseline for how the car feels. One thing to note, watch the speedometer. You can see the average speed, how it handles, all that kind of fun stuff. All of that plays into how you would tune this car. So we'll go ahead and we'll click record, and we'll get off on our first pass here. I'm not going to go super crazy or anything like that, but what I did want to do is I wanted to show a couple of different passes through a little bit of different terrain here. Got a rough section here. And then right here, we're going to have probably our roughest section that I actually have added to this map. Now that's beautiful in terms of good footage to kind of baseline everything off of. Okay, And about 40 seconds, that's plenty of time. So what you'll do is you'll come up here and hit stop, and it's gonna automatically run through everything for us, and we're just gonna watch. Okay. Now, here's another thing too. You can press J. That will actually freeze everything for you. And if I wanna go in here to controls, and I type in slow, Alt left is slow motion, slower motion, Alt right is faster motion, and then I can do Alt up and down to toggle slow motion. So J freeze, and then this. So I'm gonna actually toggle slow motion here while I talk a little bit about the factors that make shock tuning important. So you have compression well, first off, you have a coilover and you have a bypass. Those are the two components that you'll see on each corner. The coilover is the shock with coils over around the shock itself, hence the name. And then the other shock that you'll see with the fancy tubes on it and all that kind of fun stuff, that's called the bypass shock. So under your shock tuning screen there, you'll have a coilover piece and you'll have a bypass piece. That will explain kind of what they do. The bypass is how we're really going to get the most out of our shock. That is what's going to slow or speed up or freely let it move or slow it down the actual piston on the shock body, or excuse me, the piston in the shock that moves through the shock body. The coilover, it's going to hold two springs on there. It's called a dual rate system. You have a helper spring on top and then a main spring on the bottom. So as I'm sitting here looking at this, the first thing that we really want to pay attention to is the ride height of the car. This is a little low. So the first thing I noticed, particularly in the rear, and not as much in the front maybe, but in the rear, we have, maybe an eighth of the shock left, just at general compression. You know, we're only moving 60-ish miles an hour here. In my opinion, the shock really shouldn't be collapsed that much here. I am of the mindset, and you'll see this when I tune, that I will take all of the rebound out of the shock to begin with. I will do a lot of my tuning with compression only, and then I will add in rebound as I kind of handle my driving style. So first thing I notice here is in the front, the little top spring there, that helper spring is like totally collapsed on the car. I'm gonna get real zoomed in here. It's super collapsed. To me, that tells me that if I want to run this as a dual rate system, I want that shock, or I want that spring to actually do some movement there. You can see it's pretty much collapsed right now. That is what a helper spring is meant to do, or a tender spring. It's meant to keep pressure down on the bottom shock so that when the shock extends, there's enough pressure that the bottom shock is actually staying active. The bottom coil is staying active, sorry. So I want this to be a dual rate system, so I'm actually going to make that spring heavier, and I'm going to make the lower spring lighter. So when you hear heavier, lighter, it basically means how many pounds does it take to move that shock 1 inch, and you'll see that reflected in our tuning menu as well. So for our tuning here, I'm going to increase the load for our front helper, and I'm actually going to decrease the load for our, hey, what's up, man? 98 OBS pre-runner. What's up, buddy? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to increase the load for our top spring, making it carry more weight. It'll take more pounds to compress it, and I'm actually going to lower the front lower, because if you look at it, it's not doing a ton of work. It did some work right there, but again, we're moving pretty slow. We can actually speed this back up, and you'll see that. What's up, buddy? It's nice to have you in chat. Thanks for chiming in. So you'll see that the bottom spring itself, oh sweet, Liam gifted a sub. Thanks, man, I appreciate that. The bottom spring in the front is not compressing very much, so we're really not getting that much actual suspension out of that. It's really pretty stiff. So in the front, I'm going to add a spring rate to the top spring, and I'm going to lower it in the lower spring to get a little bit more of that dual rate system. Same story in the back. So if you see that helper spring in the back, that top spring is pretty compressed there. Bottom spring's not doing a whole lot of work. Now, compression, height ride, whatever, all that together, the first thing that I like to address is the spring rates, because the springs are made to hold up the car. That is the most important thing. The springs support the car. And again, dual rate system is the way to go because you'll get two spring rates that can actually move around quite well. We don't have that. We really have a single spring setup here, I would say at best. So before we touch any bypass, before we do anything else, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to change the spring rate, and we're going to see how that affects the car. So I'm going to cancel this. Okay. And if you see, our lovely truck is still moving down the road where we left it. I'm going to go in here. I use the key Control W, and it'll take you right to the tuning thing here, the tuning tab, and we'll go down to coilovers. So like I said, we have two shocks on each corner, bypasses for the front and rear, and we have coilovers for front and rear as well. So if you see secondary spring rate, that's going to be the helper spring. As you see, upper spring stiffness, it's only 20,000. I believe this is newtons over meters. If it's not, don't correct me. Topher says looks like mold S10 without the bed on it. Tophers, it's good to see you, buddy. Trying to get a little bit of fun in before we have to jump back to work. So we got 20,000 on the top spring and 150,000 on the bottom spring. So you can tell that there's a big disproportionate there. So I'm going to bring this one down to 95,000, or actually we can take it down even further. Let's go 86,000 for the lower, and we'll take this one up to 47,000. Just guessing, kind of all piecing this together here. Those numbers aren't really exact. They don't have to be. Anytime I tune a truck, it's never exactly the same every single time. So we'll go ahead and apply that. So you can see, it looks like to me that upper spring is still quite compressed. So I'm actually going to go ahead and make that, let's make it 85,000, and let's see how it looks. Okay, cool. So you see this upper spring up here has a little bit of life in it. So it looks like it's not fully compressed. That looks good to me. Now, what that tells me is I don't want to have these super close together, because then they're going to act like one single spring, right? So if you had both of them at 86,000 or whatever, then they're going to take the same amount of pressure to squish. So it effectively becomes the same spring rate, and it effectively becomes a single spring setup. Very similar to how we had it before. The secondary spring here, I have a question in chat. The secondary spring rate is going to be the smaller one. So if you look here, it says upper spring stiffness. And on some aftermarket like mod vehicles, you'll see this as helper spring. So like I said, we don't want these to be too close together. So I'm actually going to lower this to, let's do 50,000 for the lower one, or just anywhere around there works for me. There we go, 50,000 exactly. So what we can see is that our ride height went down pretty good right there. It actually just sat down. Something that I like to do is, so spring divider stop. So this is the notion with a dual spring rate for this truck. All these trucks kind of tune differently, but they all have the same parts and pieces. The spring divider stop is essentially, let's see if I can't zoom in on it here for you. Slow it down. It's that guy right here. It's this little line right here. It basically says, hey, at what point, how high should that spring divider sit? So we've got it at 0.1 plus. Let's take it down to 0.1 negative just to see how it changes. So if you can't tell, it went way further down the shock. And what that actually means is that our helper spring, it got longer. So you see how long this spring is? So we're going to go here. You see how short it is now? So again, wanting more of a dual system spring, I'm going to go ahead and take that to negative, negative 1. Excuse me, negative 0.1. Because this is actually going to give us more spring on top. It's going to give us a little bit more chance to play with that dual spring rate, which is what we want. We want more customization, more tuning options, and preload. So preload is essentially, Topher says this game is so detailed. My guy, this is real life. This is 100% what you do real life. So you'll see that whenever we change that spring stop divider, the height of the vehicle actually changes as well. So we're going to run it here, and you'll see that the car actually sits way higher now, which is fine, but that also will come into play with our steering rate, or our spring rates, excuse me. So long story short, we've got the front kind of where we want it. I like my front end to sit a little level. This looks pretty level to me, so we'll kind of play with that. if you're doing rock racing and you're doing tuning for something in rocks where ground clearance is very important, this is something that you're going to want to pay attention to is your actual ride height. Play with the spring height. Play with the spring rates. That's how you can manipulate how high the car sits. Okay, so we noticed something very similar in the back here. First things first is our tender spring, our helper secondary spring is very crushed. So I want to have a dual rate system. So I'm going to go through. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to change this spring divider stop, and I'm going to actually make our spring longer in the top up there. So you can see instantly that the shock is now way higher. We've got a little bit of like a rake to it. And I'm going to take all the preload off the shock too. So let's see. Okay, yeah, really cool that they actually added this in. So you see the preload here, it actually adjusts this slider now, and it sets ride height. So we want ours to be all the way at the top. We don't want to squish it down. We want as much actual shock movement as possible. Tophers, it's pretty legit. So it looks like to me that we probably have too much spring back here now with that rake. And what we can do is we'll even just go drive it. We'll just play with it for a sec and see how it feels. And we haven't even gotten to the bypasses yet. So I can tell you the truck definitely feels stiffer right out of the gate. But I'm going way faster. A little bit more control here. So I'm kind of bouncy though. I don't know if you guys can see it or tell, but I'm not really soaking up the bumps as much as I am going from one top of the bump to the other bump. So let's run that back and let's take a look at it. So you can see in our front system here, so now in our front system, the lower spring is doing all the work and the upper spring isn't moving at all really. And let's see, I would imagine the same thing for the back here. Let's see if we can't speed this up a little bit. So now we're really not getting that much movement out of the back at all. And that's kind of probably why it felt so bumpy, is that it's really too stiff in the back, and the upper spring in the front is too stiff now as well. So like I said, this is trial and error. So what we're going to do, first thing, it's not even worth going back and watching any more of that. We're going to go ahead, set our home point again. We're going to take some of the spring rate out of the top up here. So let's put it down to about 62,000. Okay. Let's drop it down just a click more. Let's do 57,000. I know those numbers are getting close, but we'll see. And I'm going to take this spring divider. So I'm sitting a little higher than I want. Take that spring divider down just a little bit. So you can see now it's got a little more plush feel to it. And we're going to do the same thing for the rear. Secondary spring rate, we're going to do this and kind of bump this up just a little bit. So it feels a little better, and we're going to put a little bit more spring on here for the helper. Colin says cool stuff. Yeah. So we haven't even really gotten to mess with this. I'm going to do one more pass, and then we're going to start looking at bypasses. Okay. Let's make sure we're recording. Okay. Feels less bouncy now. And y'all let me know what you think about it as well. Definitely feels way less bouncy. Got a little sideways there though, for sure. I'm not a big fan of like two-wheel drive trucks. But okay. All right, so let's go back and watch it. I feel much better about the springs because I'm thinking that. Let's kind of bump it forward just a click too. I feel like the springs are working a little bit better, and what we're going to do is we're actually going to take a lot of the work, the dampening. We're going to take it out of the bypass shock, and it should make the suspension move quite a bit more too. So that's why it may seem a little stiff all the way around, but if you see there, our lower is compressing, our upper kind of compressed maybe. I mean, maybe this could go just a tad softer, and then we're getting a little bit better movement here. But I'm going to take all the tuning out of the bypasses, and we should see this thing just absolutely scoot all over the place. Do spare tires add weight? Yes. So in this rig, you'll see that there's a gigantic fuel cell in the back and that there's no spares. I believe that you can add spares to this car, but just for the sake of what it is, we have a ton of fuel in this rear fuel cell. So we're going to go ahead and stop this. Go back here. Okay, so a really famous shock tuner I was listening to, he tunes for King shocks in real life. He mentioned there's not a situation that you can't, that you need a ton of rebound. And I got to thinking about this. I just want to make sure I kind of say this right. So look, trophy truck through whoops. Okay, so we're going to go and we're going to watch really quickly. We're going to watch this, and I want to show you guys something, okay? Let me go to settings, 1080p, settings, playback speed, and we're going to go to half as fast, and we're going to just watch some of these. So the thing to note with these trucks is that rebound and compression, what do those mean? Compression is how fast the tire is being slowed down as it goes up through the shock. So if you see here, this is obviously, the cream of the crop when it comes to suspension. The tire gets slowed as it moves up the shock shaft. So as it comes into the car, it is being slowed down. But one thing that you're not seeing a whole lot of is the car being slowed down as the tires come back out, as they be pushed back out. So the springs, right? So you hit a bump, everything collapses in, the springs get squished because you hit something, and then when you start to go, past the bump, the tires go out towards the car because the springs push the tires away, right? So there's this delicate balance of slowing the car up and down, right? Because you can't have no rebound. You need to have some, because if you had no rebound, as soon as it would come out, it would boom, slam your shocks out. And it would be, not ideal. So, and we'll go through it. I'll show you what happens when you don't tune with rebound. But I'm going to show you guys exactly kind of how I like to do mine. So what I'm going to do here is ignore all of this, because this is kind of goofy, in my opinion, how they have it set up right off the rip. We are going to take the rebound out here. This is of the coilovers, okay? So we're going to kind of do some process of elimination, and we're going to take the rebound out of the coilovers. I don't want to think about coilovers. We're going to leave some compression in the rear and some compression in the front. And what we're really going to try and do is we're really going to try and make it where the coilovers are just hollow shock bodies that are holding up the car. All they are is they're a stand for the coils. And we want to try to isolate all of our tuning to the shock itself, or to the bypass itself rather. So we'll do something like that, right? Not a lot of compression, no rebound, not a lot of compression, no rebound. And we'll even limit that further, and we'll apply that. Now what we're gonna do, so if you see how the car's kind of bouncing on me a little bit, that's having no rebound in the shock. So what we can do now is we can come up here to the bypasses. So we have short compression, mid compression, long compression, short rebound, long rebound, and then we have the actual dampening values. Now these percentages, I'm just going to read them to you. So this is for short compression. Regulates the flow of oil, bypassing the damper piston from 0 to 40% of the car. So that means for short compression. Let's go to beam and just make sure I have this right. Beam and G. Bypass tuning. There we go. Damn Reddit. Okay, so here's what we're gonna do. Okay, cool. This is what I thought. I just wanted to make sure before I said something. It sounded like an asshole. Okay, so this is the shock completely collapsed, okay? So short compression is the area right there at the bottom of the shock, right? We really don't want to have a ton of compression right here, because as we're moving really short, or as we're moving through like rocks and things like that, you'd really like for those little chattery bumps to not be noticed. Medium compression, we should start slowing the shaft down. And then long compression, this is going to happen when you have a huge washout. You hit a huge bump and it slams up in the car really quick, and we need to make sure that the long compression is as high, on the higher side. So think about it like this: short, very high percentage of the bypass is not used. Medium, less, and then long, we want most of the bypass actually doing work. And then, so rebound, it's the opposite. For short rebound, we want very low short rebound. Well, I don't use a lot of rebound. We'll kind of play with this, because I'm not going to say one thing or another until we kind of play with it. So, like I said, short compression. We're not going to mess with our values for compression and rebound just yet. We're only going to change the percentage values. So for short compression, which is at the bottom of the shock shaft, I want about 80% of the dampening to be bypassed. So 80% of 12,000 will be disregarded. About 45 here at the middle, and then I'll do about 20 in the long compression. So when the shock is really far out there, I don't want a ton of compression. I want some compression in the middle, and then I want a ton of compression dampening in the like when it's all jammed up. Lack of better words there. Short and long. So I normally will kind of match this value here, where short rebound is about 20, and then I'll do about 40% here at the long rebound. We'll have to play with it. I actually did a test drive of this, of like my strategy, and I was pretty happy with it earlier. So we'll kind of figure out how this goes, because like I said, every time I tune a car, I pretty much do it differently, but I really like this strategy here. Now, if you see how I'm just bouncing all over the place, I'll show you guys why you don't want a bouncy car. And a lot of this comes from the not having rebound or dampening in the coilover. But you can already see a huge difference in how the car handles. Look at it just soaking up all the bumps. And you can see that the suspension is working way more. Like, it's moving way faster. It's soaking up those bumps, not letting us, have big G outs and air out and all that kind of fun stuff. We're able to stay much more stable. All right, so we'll watch that. What do you guys think? Initial thoughts on that? Because it looks way better to me already. Okay. So we'll watch it once fast and once slow. Okay, side note, I think that the helper spring in the front is still too stiff. Same thing for the rear. Looks pretty smooth though. Looks way better than it was. Okay, so I think what I want to do, so my front's moving around pretty good. Let me go back and watch it again in the rear here. The rear looks pretty good too. I'm gonna put a little bit more compression in the rear. The rear looks like it could use maybe just a little bit, not much. And I'm actually gonna take a little bit of rebound out of the rear. Okay, so we're gonna take the rear down to 12,000, 11.5, and I'm gonna put just a little bit more in the compression here, and then the rebound for the front. I'm gonna take a little bit of the rebound out, and I'm gonna make the helper spring for the front just a wee bit softer. And we'll take this one down a little, the front spring down a little bit too. Now we want to make sure we're not losing a lot of ride height. Okay, so all in all, it looks pretty good. You can see that we're still bouncing a little bit, and we'll resolve the bouncing issue here in just a second with some fast compression and rebound. Let me hit the record button. I'm already able to go way faster, but I'm bouncing quite a bit. It's like riding in an old Cadillac. Still, like I said, I just feel like I'm floating a little too much. I need. But other than that, I mean, all in all, it's actually not too bad. I would run with this tune pretty confidently. I feel pretty good about that right there, to be honest with you. But we'll take something out to fix that little jiggle it's doing right there. So what we'll do is we'll come back here, and in the coilover, I'm gonna add just a little bit of fast rebound in the front and the rear. Whoa, now we're really bouncy. Okay. If I just add some rebound as well, see if it still is bouncing pretty good on us. It's not too bad. I'll say this, so I'm actually going to take that rebound out and lower that fast rebound down a little bit, because really what it's trying to do here is we're in that short compression zone, and there's so little. So if I go here to long rebound in the rear and I take some of that out, let's see if that makes it some, not much. Let's go run it again. And if my car is a little bouncy, I'm okay with that, but we can always make it a little better. Now's the part where you can kind of fine tune it to how you drive. I think most of this now is just driver error. The only thing I would probably do in terms of like changing this is I might make the rear end, the rear sway bar, just a bit stiffer, maybe like 14,000. And let's just try that real quick. And that should actually give me a little bit more stability in my driving, but I'm not sure if it's doing it. It may just be a bad driver. But the car definitely handles better, that's for sure. Really getting away from me. Coin says, I think you need to be a part of a part-time tuner. I don't know about that, man. I've watched a bunch of the YouTube videos on it, on tuning in Beam, and I just don't think that people have like the real world experience. I've never tuned, like I've never opened up a set of shocks or anything like that on a big car, but I have done a bunch of interviews, and I've consumed a lot of like shock tuning information in real life when it comes to big shocks, and the theory behind shock tuning, what people want from a car, how they want it to operate. And there's 85 different ways to tune a car, and you just have to figure out how you want to set it up. I mean, that's really what it comes down to. How do you want to make your car work? And you know, could you do the exact same with all through the coilover? Maybe. So we'll do this one. We'll call this one live stream tune. All right, we're going to tune the UFO now. What do you guys think? Coin gave me a thumbs up. Who else? What do you guys think? All right, let's get in a UFO. I tuned one earlier just to make sure I could do it. Pre-planned. All right, we'll do the King's car right here. King himself. Oh man. Yeah, let's do a little. I'm actually gonna record back to where our base camp is. We'll go from there. This car right out of the box is pretty good. It's a little flat though. It's quite. I think you'll see. It feels kind of dead. I like a much more alive suspension, and the goal would be for us to get there. Like you see, it's kind of stuttering on its steps. I know I was getting sideways there, but this will definitely get you through the desert. But it feels very like heavy-footed, especially in the rear. All right. And I think a lot of that comes from the ride height here. I'll show you. So if you see on the back of this car, Delzer says that's a lot of good info. Thanks. Yeah, man. You're about to see how we do it on a four-wheel drive car. Coin says, understandable. The only thing I have to relate to this is the UDR, but I've yet to get into tuning. Tuning on an RC is very hard because it's very small. I've tried to tune many RC cars, and it's very difficult. You can do it, but like the thing is that they don't have bypasses, and like with fluid and shock oils and all that stuff, it's quite difficult to get it how you want it. The best that you can do is really spring it. Okay, so we're looking at a four-wheel drive car. We have a Gomez UFO fab car, IFS up front, and I might even try and do like a solid axle car, but solid axle cars are tough. And obviously, same thing we talked about in our previous video. They have a coilover on every corner and a bypass. And we're going to make it, like I said, everyone can kind of tune how they want. For me, the car feels like a little flat, and it's because of its low ride height. So we're just going to try something different. This is going to be what I would do if I was doing like an Ultra 4 tune. So first thing I notice is that the spring down here in the bottom, it's the reason it feels so flat is because there's not enough spring there at the bottom. There's not enough actual shock for it to soak up any bumps. So when it does soak it up, it actually, is already at the bottom of the shock. So it just slams into the shock body. So first thing I'm going to do is, I didn't even watch that recording because I know how it feels. You can kind of see the same curvature here in this tuning, which I think is good. And there's some tuning here in the coilovers and whatnot. We're going to go ahead and take some of this rebound out. We'll keep a little bit of fast rebound in the front, and then we'll take fast bump dampening, turn the bump dampening up a little bit, and we'll turn that down for now, turn this down, and we'll turn these down. Okay, first and foremost is we're going to check the spring rate for the rear. I just want to watch it one more time to see if that top spring is getting crushed. Probably is, if I had it down. See how it's like donkey kick it a little bit, like especially right here. Back tires come off the ground. And right here. It is low and fast though. I mean, it's hard to, this machine out of the box is pretty good. And it's super controllable, which I ran all of my, if I'm doing UFO stuff, I pretty much run this car. So let's check that out. Let's see if we can't get it a little better for me. Slow it down some. Okay, so the first thing I see, like I mentioned earlier, see how much shock is actually available down here that's getting used? We're cycling really like an inch or two. In the front, it looks really good in the front. You see that both of the springs are getting used, both of the springs are getting compressed. We have huge amounts of droop. The spring height looks great. The car looks really good up front. I think it's really just the rear end that could use a little bit of extra love. Let's roll it back here, and I'm actually going to speed it up. So the upper spring looks pretty good. The only thing that it looks a little stiff, to be honest with you. So what I'm probably going to do is maybe just add a little bit of spring height to the car. because this shock will tune a little differently. So I'm gonna go ahead and check that out. So let's go look at what we can tune on this car. For the rear, we have helper spring rate, spring collar height. So this will raise and lower the suspension. So if I take it all the way to the left here, you can see that the car's obviously got way more height to it. I don't recommend changing the spring collar height. I really recommend having it all the way to the right, because with the spring collar height, essentially, you're not getting any usable spring rate. You're actually just squishing the springs down so much so that it raises the car. It's not really what you want. And then spring height here is pretty low. So let's make spring height, take it up a pretty decent amount. It's not that much. So it's because the spring rate's not very high that when we increase the height of the spring, it didn't really make that big of a difference. Like even there you see that's a maximum spring height and we're still not really that much shock shaft there. So let's take this bottom spring rate and let's bump it up to 83,000 and let's go 98,000. Let's just see how that looks. Okay, so we've got obviously a ton more spring in that. It's bouncing around a little bit on me, so we're gonna take some rebound and put some rebound back inner and a little bit of compression to kind of slow it from both ends. So you see we're not bouncing anymore. So let's try this now. Okay, so it's donkey kicking on me pretty good, but it's not bottoming out, which is what we were trying to do, what we were trying to prevent. All in all, it looks a little better though. I feel like I was donkey kicking at slower speeds, and now at higher speeds, I'm not really having too much of an issue. If I can stay on the road here. Not bad. Definitely getting some more chatter out of it. It's more lively back there. So let's, I'm not gonna watch that one because I think what we need to do, let's play with this. Short compression, medium compression, and then some rebound compression dampening. I really think that we either need to take the compression dampening, let's take it up this way, and then let's increase how freely it can move through the shock here in the rear. We'll make this really free through here. Let me go look at this again. Spring height, spring rate. I mean, I might even give it just a little bit more spring rate. I'm trying to get just a little bit more height out of the spring. Let's give it a run here. Well, first things first, let's turn our recordings on. Okay, I like it. Okay, still feels a little, maybe a little bit dead back there. Let's keep looking. It's better. I feel like I need to take some of the rebound out of the rear. Let's go ahead and do that too. Let's look at the short rebound. We'll take the short rebound out, or maybe both of these down just a little bit. Let's try that. And I may be doing the wrong thing. That's the beautiful part of this. Okay, it feels like we're slapping through the shock a little bit faster now. Okay, so we're still getting some of that bucking out of the back, but I would say not as, I don't know, maybe probably about the same. It looks like it's really not changed its behavior too much. Let's try it again. Get one more look at it. Okay, so I'm gonna try something. I feel like it's probably fine. I mean, it was fine to begin with, to be honest with you. So rear, we have our rebound quite high. I'm gonna take some rebound dampening out of it, and I'm actually gonna up our fast rebound dampening quite a bit and see if we can't. I don't know what the difference in the system is between rebound and fast rebound, but I'm gonna imagine that it's a speed thing, maybe, like how fast the piston's moving out of the body. Okay, it feels better. Yeah, we're not getting the kicking now. Definitely eliminated the kicking. I think that feels pretty good, but still getting a little bit. I keep running those darn bushes. All right, let's stop trying to guess and let's do some recording and watch. I'm gonna bet we need a little bit more compression because it looks like it's bottoming out on us now. Okay, let's check that out. We're definitely moving through that rear end a lot better now. So we're still bottoming out. Pretty good. It really looks like we never, I don't know how much of that shock we're actually using. Yeah, so it looks like it could maybe use just a click more in the rear of compression. I don't know, it's pretty good, but still feels jumpy. Okay, so it goes all the way through the shock, still on a big hit. Oops, that's not what I want to do. So let's go through here and let's just play with it a little bit, and let's add, up in the coilover, we're gonna add some fast bump dampening. We're gonna add a little bit more of that. Okay, there we go. It's recorded. And what we're gonna try to prevent is we're gonna try to make it where the shock goes all the way through the shock but doesn't bottom out. I think I'm really splitting hairs at this point, to be honest with you, though. I really think that this machine, right when we spawned it in, was almost perfect. I think we've kind of put our kicking problem back into action. Okay, so yeah, I think what I would rather do than what we have here is I'd rather take our rear bump dampening. I'm gonna take that down a slick, and rear compression bypass. I'm actually gonna take it up just a little bit, and I'm gonna really make the mid compression quite serious, because I think we're not getting to the short or the long compression there. What do we think? How do you guys feel about it? Still feels like kind of bucking a little bit. We might be chasing our tails just with the way that the shock is set up. Like on the car, we don't actually have a whole lot of shock to use. Pretty good though. I mean, that's pretty darn good. then just wide open desert. Let's run it around a little bit and see if we can't get something going here. I'm gonna run it through this rock trail up here. I can't really tell a big difference from when I started. I think it feels very similar. I will say, I mean, it's, other than that, it's about as smooth as I can get it, I think. Because this tune, with the ride height and everything, I really think would do fine in the rocks, too. See, here's some actually really big roofs. This is where you'd have to probably drive. And again, shock tuning really can be mitigated with driving. Like, if you get in a car that's not tuned at all, you can really drive it rather than have to deal with your tuning. But, I mean, it's not bad. I think I could make it 3 laps in the hammers with this car. Let's go hit backdoor real quick. You know, I look at chat for 1 second and then I immediately drive into a wall. Alright, see how she would do in the rocks. This is not the backdoor trail. We got a few other things we can take up here. We can get the backdoor from here. Hey, T-Mac Gaming, thanks for the follow, buddy. Oof. That is not the line, confirmed. That is also the same line. Let's see if we can't get up and around this here. That line does not like this car, that's for sure. Oh, it's just moving. There we go. And so this is the back of the original back door. I've never been like a huge fan of having trails that you can only run one way, and it really felt like this trail to begin with. You could really only run it one way. All right, here we go. Let's take her up back door and see how she does. Oh, T-Mac, I just got in this game about a month ago. Absolutely amazing how detailed it is. Listen, T-Mac, go back and watch the VOD. I just spent about 45 minutes detailing shock tuning, and I think it's super beneficial, especially if you're into the off-road stuff. Oof, man, it is not liking this. I think the way that I climbed this earlier was kind of just this right here, and then... Nope. Well, that's no good. Alrighty. Well, tuned for the desert, but at what cost, my friends? And you know what the funny part is? I didn't even save that car. I didn't even save that tune. That is a quick trip to Spain without the S, guys. And beam crashed. Yep. Beam crashed. All right. Well, hey, that's it for my short stream. That's me, not you. That's Beam dying. Thanks for sticking around. Here's what we're going to do. T-Mac says, yeah, that's what I do. This map has some great crawling trails. So T-Mac, what you need to do is I'm going to send you a link to my Discord. I have a custom version of this map that is available for free and I have time trials that I've made. So what you can do is you can come in, you can download our map, download our time trials, and you can race against us to be in our Discord. You can be in our international leaderboards we have 4 different time trials for the King of the Hammers map. We have qualifying laps 1, 2, and 3. All you have to do is follow the YouTube video. I'll actually put a link to that here. Hey, look, JTeam WTV is live. Those of you guys that are watching on YouTube, I can't see your messages. I'm really, really sorry. I can check really quick to see, but I'm throwing everything in Twitch chat. Oh, T-Max says I'm already in it. Definitely follow YouTube too. Cool, thanks, man. Let's see, can I see multi-stream chat? Nope, sorry guys on YouTube. I'm doing my best. But yeah, guys, great night. This video I've been wanting to make for a while. So yeah. And what's going to happen is every other BeamNG driver, every time I make a video about BeamNG, all the other BeamNG people DM me and they're like, hey, you could do it this way or that way. And I'm like, maybe not. Maybe I'll do it the way I want to because it works for me. And whatever you find when it comes to shock tuning, map making, driving, whatever it is, whatever works for you is what's right. So with that, guys, make sure you follow me on Instagram, follow me on Facebook. Let me put those back up here. Okay, I'm actually going to have them at the end of the stream. And follow me on YouTube, follow me on Facebook, follow me everywhere. Who knows it? Follow me everywhere but in real life. Have a great night, guys.